you want to master a track today? No? Okay, let's do it anyways. Hello, and I'm back! Last video I showed you my favorite third-party plugins for mastering, but this video we're gonna keep things cheap and use just Ableton Live plugins. Ableton Live Suite. But still, Ableton Live Suite is the best version of Ableton Live, so you should have it because it comes with a lot of stuff. Just by buying Ableton Live Suite, you can get all these plugins and have a mastering chain that sounds really good. So let's go for it. I'm using Gain Match here just as a before and after plugin, so the volumes are matched, but the rest of the plugins are all Ableton Live plugins. Let's hear the before and after without all the plugins and with all the plugins. Okay, so for this video, let's go step by step, right? Usually I start a mastering chain by removing frequencies that I don't like in my mix. So to do that, the best plugin in Ableton Live still is EQ8. EQ8 is a great EQ. You can click it twice here to make it super big. Also, when you're mastering, don't forget to right-click on EQ8 and turn on oversampling. That makes it sound better. So my oversampling is on right here. My EQ is big, so let's turn it on. So let's hear the before and after. You see, it's very subtle, but I really just cleaned up a couple of frequencies that I didn't like. So all that I did in EQ8 was add a curve here, and I just swept across. Let's say I don't like this frequency. I just turn it down. And I don't have to worry so much about it anymore. You see, it's very subtle. You can't just go cutting things out like a crazy person because you're gonna change the sound of your mix too much. And when you're mastering, you're not really meant to be super aggressive with your EQ, so just cut a little bit of the frequencies that you don't like or that are bothering you. And you're gonna notice some difference, and especially when you start compressing everything and making everything sound louder, that's gonna be a big help. So, first thing, cut frequencies with EQ8. Second thing, this is a Max for Live device, but it comes in Ableton Live Suite and it's called Color Limiter. I like it because it's a limiter, but it also adds color, just like the name says it. And all that I do is I put it on there and I turn up the loudness and just raise the volume a little bit, because in this mastering chain, we're gonna raise the loudness bit by bit. So when we get to the final limiter, we're just not pushing the final limiter to the limit, you know? So bit by bit, we're gonna raise the volume a little bit. And the first plugin that I use for that is Color Limiter, because it's very simple. It has one loudness button, and you can mess around with the other buttons, but really, the loudness button is the most important one. That's why it's so big. Let's hear before and after. You can really push this plugin just like I did, but you know, we're mastering, we gotta be delicate. You gotta be so delicate. This is a mastering session, it's serious business, alright? Just turn down the loudness a little bit and I let the color of this plugin color my music a little bit. It's cool. Next plugin is the channel EQ. If you remember the other video I did about my favorite mastering plugins, I used like a Potec EQ to do a smiley curve on my mix. And Ableton comes with a smiley EQ because it has 3 bands, low, mid, and high, and you can do a smiley curve on it. By doing that, you can give a little boost to your lows, a little boost to your highs, and if you need to, you can lower your mids. I didn't lower the mids on this song, I didn't think I needed to, but you can. And this is my smiley curve EQ. You see why it's a smiley EQ? Because it makes people smile. Because people like low end, people like bass, and people like excitement. So that's what you're adding with a smiley EQ. Simple, easy, don't overdo it. but do it a little bit. Next one of my favorite plugins in Ableton Live of all time. I remember when they added this plugin. Glue Compressor is an SSL bus compressor, and sometimes I think it's my favorite SSL bus compressor because it just sits so well in Ableton Live, it's so easy to use, it looks good, it's native, it doesn't take much CPU at all. Again, just like with the Q8, you should right-click it and turn oversampling to make it sound a bit better. Just like the name says it glues everything together, but it has a little trick up its sleeve that I really enjoy using on separate tracks and on mix buses and on master buses. But let's hear first the before and after. You see, it just hugged everything together, made everything come together a bit better. You see, I'm not going crazy, I just have a ratio of 2, which is good for mastering, it's quite sensible. I left the attack and release just as it was because it sounded good for my track, but you always have to play around with the attack and the release depending on the speed of your song, just to make sure the compressor is reacting the right way to the transients in your song. But for my song, it was fine. So the trick in this plugin, it's this button here, soft clip. You can hard clip it and soft clip it, and a lot of people have been enjoying hard clipping and soft clipping their tracks because it's kind of a different way of raising the volume of your song without limiting. It just cuts the top of the transients, and sometimes that makes your song sound more aggressive and more punchy. So let me play around with this button and I'll do the hard clip and the soft clip and show you the differences. I use gain match just to make sure the volume stays the same between before and after. It adds some punch to the song, like I didn't do it this time, but I would maybe do it. With the hard clip, it's even a bit more aggressive. You see, with the hard clip is a bit too much, but with the soft clip it was quite nice. Anyways, I'm not gonna hard clip or soft clip this song, so let's put it back down here. Let's turn off gain match and move on to the next plugin. And the next plugin is EQ8. Again, why am I using EQ8 twice? Because I used the first one just to remove frequencies I didn't like, and I used the second one to do mid-side EQing. Remember, mid-side equalization is when you EQ the middle of your track separately from the sides of your track. So maybe you can raise the high frequencies on the side of your tracks and raise the low end just in the middle of your track. Is really nice. And again, I did a similar thing with FabFilter in my last video, but I'll show you this one because you can do basically the exact same thing with EQ8. It's just a little bit less visual, but it's as easy. So let's click EQ8 twice to make it big. They have this little button here called Mode. And you see, stereo is the one that you usually use, just normal EQ. Have left and right to EQ the left side of your mix separately from the right side of your mix. And you have mid-side to EQ the mid separately from the side. So I'm on mid-side mode. And as you can see, there's an edit button right here. And you can choose to edit the side on S or the middle on M. So on the side, I took most of the low end out because I don't want any low end messing around with my guitars on the sides. I want the sides to be quite clear and sparkly and all that stuff. And then I did the same thing that I did with the FabFilter, which was I searched for frequencies that I thought would sound better on the sides, and I boost them here, and then I went to the mid, and I did the opposite, just to create contrast between the side and the middle of your track. And I believe that opens up your mix and makes it wider and much nicer. Let's hear the before and after. It really focuses the bass right in the center, and it makes the sides go even farther out. I really like mid-side EQing. The next step in my chain is saturator. Usually I use tape emulation here, but we don't have a tape emulation plugin in Ableton Live. So I use saturator just to add a little bit of harmonics to my track and maybe smooth out some high end and make the low end a little bit more audible on smaller speakers. So it's just a nice touch of saturation, because saturation is life, guys. But you gotta be conservative saturating things in your master bus. I'll show you how it sounds when you go crazy, but this is how the before and after sounds right now. see, because the mid-side EQ was nice, but it made the center of my song a bit too middly. Like my vocals were a bit too harsh, I think, in the center of my song, so I could go back here and fix that, and probably I would. But the saturator already helped a little bit to smooth things out in the middle of my mix. So that's why I like it. And if you want to go crazy, this is how it's gonna sound. It might be a good effect for a section of your song, I'm not gonna lie. I've done that before. But yeah, be conservative with it, yeah? And the most important button is drive. I usually always use analog clip because it's the nicest saturation we have in here. The other ones are quite interesting for effects as well, but for a master bus, analog clip is definitely the one you should go to. And I also left soft clip on. I didn't really clip this plugin, but in case I did, it would be a soft clip, not a hard clip. So there you go. And my last plugin is the limiter, and it's just a simple limiter that comes with Ableton Live. I could use color limiter again, but because I already used it in the beginning of the chain, I just used this one to have something different, you know? Different things can be nice sometimes. And because we build up the loudness slowly through our chain, this limiter is not even doing much, you know? I put up 3 dBs, but sometimes I even have to leave it at 0 or just put it down because I built the loudness so gradually in my chain that when I get to here, it's already around where I want it to be, and the limiter is just keeping everything in check so I don't clip. Usually I leave the ceiling at -1, but it really depends on where you're gonna upload your song, or if you're gonna do a CD or a vinyl or whatever. And that's it. It's just a simple limiter. It's just there for safety. You see, it's just making things a bit louder and not letting them clip. That's what a limiter does. And I gotta say, I really like how the Ableton plugins do for mastering. I'm really impressed. And it's also super nice that you have your whole mastering chain laid out in front of you, because you don't have to open any windows or anything like that. You can just hear things and be like, oh man, this is a bit off. So you find where you can fix it and you just click it and it's there. So like, oh, my vocals are a bit too hard. And fixed, I don't have to open any window, everything's laid out, it looks so good. I wish we could have all the plugins in the world in Ableton form, so they could look as good as this every time. Again, I'm not a mastering engineer, this is the best that I could do in the last half hour that I was trying to play around with the song. Let's hear the before and after. I do think it sounds better than before, but let's just make sure, right? Again, am I a mastering engineer? No, but that sounds better. For sure it sounds better. So, if I don't have any money to pay a mastering engineer, if I just want to get a song out on YouTube fast, that's how I would do it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like what I do, please press all the buttons around me that help me. And don't forget to subscribe because the Ableton Live 11 series is coming out, and I see you all next time. Bye.